All
Hi,
right, here we go.
Rise of the Multidimensional Human Family. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are on this wonderful planet. My name's Alana Mook, and I'm a participant, student, if you will, in the Lightbody Academy. And I have the pleasure of being here today with one of the facilitators in the Lightbody Academy, Ashlyn. Hi, Ashlyn.
Hi, Alana. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So what we are doing this morning, this afternoon, this evening, is having a conversation between Ashlyn and I that does a couple of things. One, it gives a peek into everyone who has curiosity, interest in what goes on in the Lightbody Academy, by letting you listen to a conversation between two varied participants. And it gives the opportunity for all of us to get to know one of the facilitators, Ashlyn, a lot better. So here we go. For those of you who are in the Rise community and drawn to, impulse to, guided to, pressured to by your spirit, know more and are curious about the Academy, have a peek in. And for those of you that are already participating in the Academy, whoopee, we get to know Ashlyn better. Can we start, Ashlyn, by talking about how you found your way into Lightbody Academy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a part of Lightbody Academy for several years now. When I came across Lightbody, I was in what many refer to as the dark night of the soul, where my entire life had completely fallen apart. Not just a little, not just say my career or just say a relationship, like every part of my life had completely fallen apart. And then that combined with some very serendipitous and also causal circumstances that pointed me to Lightbody from several different directions. So I came across Christina via kind of a circuitous route through listening to podcasts of various healers and services that they offered. And so many times on these podcasts, they would offer a clearing or whatnot. And it was very easy for me to sit through these pieces. Then I came across this one particular podcast where the clearing just absolutely wowed me. And that wasn't Christina, but what I found out at a later date is it was a person that Christina had studied with. It was one of her teachers. And then shortly after that, I had a friend contact me and say, hey, I worked with this person in Longmont in Colorado, and you just blazed all over the session. Like, I think you really need to get in touch with her and contact her. And lo and behold, it was Christina. And that's when, I contacted her and we met, and really the meeting was kind of just perfunctory, just kind of going through the motions for me, because I knew I had that yes for it just immediately. It was kind of funny because we met up at a coffee shop and she walked in, and as I remember it, I kind of jumped up with this jubilation and joy and hugged her and said hello. And looking back on it, like at the time, it just felt like meeting an old friend. Like some part of my spirit knew some part of her spirit. And in hindsight, at that time, in hindsight, looking back, I was thinking, oh God, she probably thought that like I was off my rocker, being so exuberant at meeting somebody for the first time. But now, a couple years into it, of course, that's not an uncommon circumstance at all. You know, when a soul knows a soul, and when that meeting has been arranged by those essences.
That's wonderful. I love hearing how people came to be associated with the Academy. And I actually met Christine over coffee too the first time on a camping trip. And I had a similar experience of just lighting up and knowing there was something really big there for me at the right time. So that's great. And so, how did you then begin your activities within the Academy? How did you start? And
I went straight into the deep dive. It was just one of those things. I knew this is what I wanted. Where I was in my life, I knew it wasn't stepping into the shallow end, so to speak, that it was time to really address those issues, and to do it in a big way. That being said, that's not necessarily what I would recommend for anybody coming into the program, unless that was just absolutely what was being called for. And that's always a discussion that can happen with Christina or the facilitators. But there is, there's a way to be in a very gentle and integrative process in coming into this work, because it changes you drastically. And maybe you can speak to this as well. And these changes aren't, oh, I've come in and I've learned this skill. These changes are deep soul changes, where then you kind of have to look at your life and say, okay, where do I want to make these changes in my life? And where do I make these changes in my actual being and my perspectives and my beliefs?
wonderful. And I'll chime in just for a minute on that entry into the Lightbody Academy, because I went in slowly and gently, starting with the component that's called the Dreamtime Healing Project. And then I did that for a cycle and went into the healer acceleration, and then into the deep dive. So I had a very gradual entry into something, and I really had no idea anything about it, except I felt this incredible draw and pull and rightness about being part of it, having met Christina. Excuse me. So once you were in Ashlyn, can you talk a little bit about what it was like being in the Academy and going through the programs and, well, the projects and the experiences?
Mm-hmm. It was gratifying on a level that I didn't know I could be gratified on. And a big part of that was I suddenly had vocabulary and a framework for all of these experiences that I had had, and didn't have anywhere to put them. And here was a place for them. And not only was there a place for them, but there was a way to work with them, and there was a way to grow from them, and there was a way to create from them. So I spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of time sleeping the first year, because that's how I integrate a lot, is I just needing to shut my mind off and let my biosuit, my body, do what it does best. And that is to really integrate and organize all kinds of different beliefs and perspectives. And so that first year, I slept a lot. I slept a lot because so many of my beliefs were changing, and yet they were falling into place. they were opening up and becoming expansive and becoming more in tune with how I saw the world and how I experienced the world. And that was such a huge validation for me of coming from this place where, even being in the health and wellness industry, because I've been a massage therapist and an energy worker for about 15 years. And I've explored all kinds of different energy work, all kinds of different structures, from yoga to visceral manipulation to somatic release, all of these different ways of approaching our expression of our internal soul world in 3D reality. And I mean, each one gave me a piece. Each one gave me a piece, but Lightbody, wow, it wasn't just a piece. It wasn't just a piece. It was this foundational base to come from. And so a lot of the first year was really just allowing my own framework to shift and rotate and begin to see and let go of how contractive and how restricted the beliefs that I had just simply accepted by default, because that's, even in fringe energetic societies, that's still what the accepted status quo was. Being able to let that fall away and just have a completely new platform for what I could be and what was possible.
That's wonderful. And so for people new to Lightbody Academy and in the stage of wondering what really is it, how does it work, what sort of a format or forum do you step into when you join the academy that allows you to do what you've just described doing? How does it work?
The coming into the Dreamtime project would be the way to gently come into all of these belief systems shifting, right? The Dreamtime really shows you how possible it is to have a connection with Dreamtime, how to have that connection and work with it in 3D reality, and how to work that connection with other participants, with other people. And ultimately that's what we're here doing, right? As a human species on Earth, is we're learning to work in Dreamtime and to do that with each other, so that it's not just our own personal dreams that we're able to manifest, but how do we manifest together? And that's a very basic skill that forms the backdrop to everything everything else that is learned in Lightbody. And that's, it sounds a bit abstract as I'm speaking, but it becomes very tangible. It becomes a very tangible thing. And you can speak to this, Alana, of the process of learning how to go into Dreamtime and come out, or begin to notice when it drops in to a 3D space.
So for those wondering how is it actually done, one component in the academy and a key component is meeting in these small group, what we call labs, where you'll have a facilitator and 3 participants, and very skillfully guided into learning how to hold space, learning how to connect with your body's rhythms. Really a key theme in the program for me has been this idea of returning to your center by paying attention to your body's rhythms and staying with yourself and learning to feel your feelings and think your thoughts and experience your imagination and share your dreams and begin to integrate them and look at them in a really non-judgmental, safe space with very skilled facilitation, helping you to smoothly move into increasing your ability to step forward in your authenticity, in your spirit talk. And so that's a foundational piece, is these labs. And for me, it's been amazing. And it is abstract and it is hard to chat about and describe because so much happens. And it is tangible, but it's also so abstract. So thank you. So as you dove right into the deep end, you were then participating in a variety of labs. This Lightbody Academy has what I would call almost like departments in a university or something, with focuses facilitated with the authenticity and the tools that each facilitator brings around different themes, like learning to watch and experience your dreams on multiple levels and look for the invitation to dive deep into where your spirit and soul are speaking to you in dream time. And learning healing skills in another department or strand, how to become increasingly aware of and use your energy. And then into the deep dive, where you get to mix and match all of these things and bring forward your intuition and your growing sense of group resonance and the power of it, both for your individual refinement and authenticity building, but also then it begins to happen for the group. So as you went through that in the deep end, in that wide open invitation to come on, let's do this. Can you describe a little more about how that unfolded for you in your life?
In my 3D reality?
In all levels of your reality, and I guess in particular honing it towards what emerged that led you to now be sitting in the position of a facilitator within the program.
Um, mhm. So the different departments within Lightbody has been an evolution. And it continues to evolve. And that's one thing I love about Lightbody, is it evolves with the needs of the participants and with the truth that is very consistently felt into and felt into and felt into. And that truth for me, the truth of the concepts being taught, the truth of being able to own yourself in all of the different aspects, right? So we do a lot of work with, the denser, more shadowy aspects of ourselves too. That's not shied away from. It's not all light and rainbows and sunshine all the time. Sometimes it is, and that's wonderful and that's great. But, we have the community that is present. We're very present with one another and seeing one another in all of our shapes and colors, so to speak. Right. And so maybe there's an aspect that doesn't feel very good, or maybe there's an aspect that carries a lot of shame or a lot of guilt. And this has resonated through our 3D reality in various situations. And it's a place where we can bring that forward and we can work with it, and we can accept it. And it makes the truth of being so very resolute. And sensing that from the very beginning, that this was a place of being, really led me to just continue that journey, and continue unraveling the layers, and just seeing how it evolved. And working with Christina and the other facilitators now, we don't necessarily know how it's going to evolve. We don't know what this is going to look like next year, because it's all about being in the moment and being present in the moment, and yet being very authentic with your presence in the moment. So whatever shows up, then we address, and we allow for the evolution of that. So the development of the Dreamtime project and working through Dreamtime in this very kind of specific way, development of the Healer Acceleration Lab, and delineating, okay, these are the skills to be learned by people that are ready to take the next step. And this is where we incorporate the tracking, and this is where we begin to incorporate working as a group and integrating energies. This is where all the skills learned in Dreamtime begin to come forward as that backdrop to where these new skills are being learned. And then you have the deep dive, which is always constantly evolving, of course, with whoever is involved in there, because each participant in Lightbody and in each program, and even specifically in each lab, bring a very genuine and unique skill set each time they show up, in a very genuine and unique multi-dimensional space with them. So every single lab is unique. Every single iteration of the Dreamtime project or the Healer Acceleration Lab or the deep dive is unique, dependent on who hears that call to show up on, who has that yes, and what space they show up in.
Oh, I love that you're talking about that, because as a student participant now, a year into the program, what just tickles me is how alive and in motion and evolving it is. The program is for me individually, for us in our small groups, in our larger groups, in the collective resonance, and in the way and in the life and the evolution of the academy. It's like we're all breathing together. It's an incredible, and it just keeps getting richer and richer and richer. It's a very extraordinary thing, really. And it just feels like, as we step forward into our authenticity and feel the power that we have in claiming our sovereignty and following our spirit in our lives, and then joining other like-minded people doing it in a resonance, and in an academy that's evolving to facilitate that, just more and more all the time. It's such a pleasure, and it's such a delightful surprise to have found my way into participation in the Lightbody Academy, and so incredibly wonderful to meet unique individuals, each of us bringing what's uniquely ours to bring to the mix.
Mm-hmm. And it's a surprise, it's
all the time. It's a surprise in what I bump into in myself, what gets brought up in the resonance, what gets facilitated. I think it's amazing. And can you talk about being a facilitator and what that role is and is like?
It's challenging in a very different way. Being a participant, you're asked to show up authentically with your stuff, whatever that stuff is. And there's somebody from Facebook that says that keeping their focus has always been hard for them. And that was my number one thing coming into the program was I know I have this thing that I want to do in life. I don't know what it is. I have a calling. And yet I kept getting distracted from it. So as a participant, you get to bring that in. You get to bring that in and you show up with your stuff. And that in and of itself is challenging. Being authentic with all the layers that are there, with whatever piece you're working on, and being able to see the ways in which we're not victims. Right? We're not victims of our own reality. We're not victims of any situations that are going on. And that alone is a huge piece, like huge chunk. As a facilitator, there is a call to be able to hold that container for others, to be able to have the clarity to both work on that piece, because you still have stuff that shows up. You still have stuff to work on, but being able to hold the container and allow others the space to come in and do the same. And so there's this very delicate balance that is learned of holding that space, allowing what needs to come forward and present to come forward and present, but also really calling people out when they're doing the dance around that authentic truth. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, because
I do.
this is a very present thing in Lightbody, is being able to say, okay, yes, I see that, but I also see this deeper layer where there's a piece of yourself that wants to be owned. There's a piece of yourself that wants to be taken responsibility for. And that's not always easy to see in yourself as a participant. It's not always easy to call out as a facilitator. And even as a facilitator, it's not easy to see in yourself all the time. It becomes easier though, right? Because we begin, as we clear these layers out, we begin taking stuff less personally. And you're able to let go of the story. And so you bring this ability to both embrace the story of participants and yet not hold it as the centerpiece. It's simply the doorway in, if it needs to be present. And there is a refinement to the ability to see, okay, well, what needs to be called forward and what needs to be let go. Where are all of these kind of intangible lines to lead and navigate people and allow them to discover for themselves? There are many labs or pods where, as a facilitator, you can see where somebody needs to go, and yet they still have to take the journey to get there, even within an hour and a half lab or pod. And so the role of the facilitator is to guide them in getting there, not to say this is what I see, this is where you need to be, but it's the navigational piece. How do you allow that opening and that expansion and that learning within the participant?
It's an amazing thing to me as a participant. Over and over, I'm very aware of how beautifully you do what you just described, and I find myself just in awe about navigating all of that, setting that stage, facilitating individual processes that are all so unique in such a a way that even when we bump up against our challenges or called on our challenges within that, we feel held at the same time, and over and over gain the trust to really recognize that there's a something showing up there that's a doorway into a deeper level of self-understanding or self-awareness, or in seeing and understanding and letting go of our self-limitation in those places where we are self-limiting. And I feel that over and over again, and I'm awed by the mastery that you show in doing that. Um,
Thank you.
and Yes, thank you. And the other thing that I'm really curious about is your affinity for nature and the plant kingdoms and the elementals. And I mean, I hear you talking about your background in the healing arts and a lot of different experiences. Where'd you get that affinity for the elemental world? How did that hatch and bloom and come in?
Oh goodness. I don't know that it's something that I picked up anywhere along the way, as much as it's always been there. This very intimate connection with the telluric realm, and yet growing up in 3D reality, I didn't necessarily know that it was there, or that there was anything special around that, mostly because it was repressed throughout my whole childhood, in an energetic way, let's say, right? That's I am thankful that growing up, having several different houses growing up, my parents always purchased houses that backed up to woods. Every single house I lived in growing up backed up to woods, and so we could always pop out the back door and go explore the woods. So in that way, I was very fortunate not to be brought up on a city block. That being said, was I aware of dropping in and talking to plant consciousness and having a relationship with this plant spirit versus this plant spirit? Not at all. No, like zero awareness of that at all. I just knew that I was a kid and I liked to be outside. There are so many strange experiences of spaces I had in childhood that now, knowing what I know, I can look back and see I was experiencing the absence of that energy, the absence of that awareness, almost like energetic silence, if you will. And yet this was all I knew as a child. So I knew it was strange. I knew something was strange, but being all I knew, I didn't have anything to compare it to. And I didn't have the skills to say, oh, this is what's missing. Let me go search for it. It was more very defined in kind of 3D terms of becoming an adventurer and becoming a seeker, first kind of traveling worldwide, and second, really honing that seeking into the spiritual realm, which at the time was kind of when I moved to Colorado and started pursuing not just massage, but a lot of energetic work, yoga. So those kinds of spiritual communities. And so, of course, you get into a lot of Native American beliefs and indigenous beliefs filter into those communities. And I certainly felt an affinity for the natural world. And then I began experiencing plant medicine in various forms. And even with those experiences, it still wasn't something that stood out to me as like, oh, I'm particular in this, or the way I experience it is particular. it was really coming into Lightbody and having the experience of working with other people and seeing what their experience was, one, for themselves with different plant consciousness, and two, working with me. And it really began to define itself and take shape that there's a very special relationship there, and not the typical relationship of, okay, let me sit in front of a tree and talk to this tree. It's a very, for me, it's a relationship that actually comes through the very cellular structure of my body. So it's almost like this innate feeling of the spirit, as opposed to a conversation that happens, a soul essence to soul essence. But I didn't know this. I didn't know this really until working with Lightbody and all of the work within Lightbody and creative exploration that's possible has highlighted this as a skill of mine, as a gift that I can share with others. And it's wondrous in how it can be shared and what happens when it's shared. And it's not, even in the plant consciousness community, there's still a box there. Even with people who believe in speaking with plant spirits, okay, let me speak with this plant spirit and let's see what it can teach me. Okay, it's good for this medicine. It's good for this, take it at this time and in this way. And this is a completely different relationship. This is soul essence to soul essence. And that is one layer of how we can connect with plants. And there is a vast multi-dimensional array of ways in which we can feed one another. It's not just one way. Plants love connecting with us. The telluric realm thrives on connection with humans and humanity, and they thrive on creating with humanity. This is such a joy for them. And there are many people in typical spiritual communities that seem to come from this baseline of, we're not worthy of anything in the natural realm, that it's up here and we're down here, that there's a gap there. And if Lightbody has taught me anything, it's we are what we're capable of in our biosuit. We're the same. And there's so much co-creation that can happen when we're able to own that and connect with the telluric realm or exospecies, and have all of these different relationships and own those relationships in many, many different ways. And it's just this ripple effect that goes out in our ability to connect multidimensionally and begin to build and create multidimensionally in communion, in resonance with everything else that's out there, or in here, as I might say.
I am so excited and tingly and lit, being a participant and having had the experience of the truth of what you're saying in my own life and in the labs and in the participation. But I also really loved the way you spoke about participating in labs with other people and coming into your own recognition of what you very especially bring by having the opportunity to watch and feel and hear what other people's perceptions and perspectives are. It's very refining to one claiming and remembering their own authenticity and self. And this really is happening for me in the Lightbody Academy as well. And it's such a wonderful experience and delightful surprise. And life enriching, ever blooming experience that's facilitated here.
Well, can you speak to that, Alana? Can you speak to some of the surprise gifts and skills that you now find yourself with?
Well, I think for me, the it's just dawning on me more and more every day, how truly connected I am to everything and everyone. You know, I mean, that's I've always thought I knew that, and this experience is just making me see it and feel it and recognize how all things are connected, and how we, in our meeting with each other as humans, or with the elementals, with the other kingdoms, the co-creative power that we hold when we meet soul to soul, as you called it. When I'm guided by my heart, um, to follow my spirit and my soul in my daily moments and my choices. And it's these labs and this theme of, well, these themes, the intention of stepping forward in my authenticity, but also the way that we're guided to use the rhythms of our bodies, to hold ourselves present and get more and more present. And this is what just keeps getting richer and richer. And as my ability, and your labs particularly, all of these labs and all of these facilitators, it's just a wonderful variety, do different things. But in particular, your blend of meeting soul to soul with the elementals, the plant kingdoms, and your body awareness and knowledge, and the way that expands my presence, in my physical body, in the natural world around me, and with my growing relationships with those other sentient beings I'm in the natural world as part of, is just amazing. And it's never ceases to, I guess it doesn't surprise me as much now, because it's just on a roll and flowing and happening. But along the way, it's been like, oh my gosh, and I thought I knew the world I lived in. Oh my gosh. And I thought I knew who I truly was. Oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh.
Yeah.
It just keeps happening and evolving, and there's always more. And it's rich and it's wonderful. Um,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And I just want to add a little piece that even as a facilitator, I participate in labs and pods. Sometimes you and I are sitting side by side as
yes.
participants. So it's always, and that's one reason why we kind of shy away from teacher student labels, because this is a process of all of us together. I'm still learning, and I might be sitting as a participant next to somebody who's just entering the program, and that's totally fine. There's no disparity there. There are some classes that do require a little bit more time and refinement of skills, but that's not to say that as a there's no hierarchy, and I feel like that's a beautiful reflection of our relationship with all of these other multidimensional components.
Mm. I really think so too, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's as I was getting ready to sign on for this conversation, I was thinking in my head, I was having trouble using the word student because of the equality and the way we meet each other equally within here. But for the purposes of people trying to understand the academy and how it works, I delineating that a little bit so they would know the difference in this interview between a facilitator and a student participant. But it feels to me like I kind of stumbled over student, because it seemed like a little narrowing of the truth of what's really going on in here. So, Ashlyn, you had mentioned that there's another type of a lab or program that you might be initiating or that you were envisioning, Rivers of Light.
The Rivers of Light activation. So this is going to be an activation.
Ah,
So not necessarily a lab or pod. This is going to be openly available to everybody in the Rise community, or whether that's YouTube or Facebook. And this is really an activation that is geared with that integrative work of working with plant consciousness as it interacts with the biosuit. And so one thing that has an understanding that has evolved in working with plant consciousness is its ability to help guide us in, let's say, upgrading the biosuit and being able to hold these higher frequencies that are coming into Pachamama, all of the changes that planet Earth is going through and that humanity is going through because of it. There are ways to work with the biosuit in which to broaden and expand its capacity to hold all of this and more. And so that's what the Rivers of Light activations are about. And the first one of those will be Thursday, December 17th. So mark your calendars. Anybody that is interested, and that's going to be available to everyone. And you can get a taste for what it's like to work in this specific way in a group, integrating these energies to allow the biosuit to really step up to what it's innately capable of. I don't know if there's anything else. That was kind of a broad abstract.
no, I like the way you just wrapped that up. I was like, wow. Because this is kind of new for me to realize that I'm also in a co-creative partnership with my body, my
Yes.
physical body.
Yes.
And I've never really thought of my physicalness in that way until recently. And this exploration is lighting up so many things. There's another surprise in that regard as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our biosuit is, I mean, it's an interactive interface, you might say, and we're the software. So it's as sharp as the software is, then that's what the hardware is going to run. It's one way to look at it.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashlyn. It's really fun to get to know you better, and it's an absolute delight to work with you in
Thank you.
labs
Thank you for your
side by
time.
side. And so, is there anything nuts and bolts ish about the academy that you think people might want to hear? Has this
Yeah,
piqued them?
absolutely. So if this intrigues you, if this piques your interest, lightbodyacademy.com. You can go there and check it out. And there are ways to sign up for the projects. As we spoke, the Dreamtime Healing Project is a beautiful entryway for that. If you have past experience, then HAL, so that's the Healer Acceleration Lab, which is starting to get into the more advanced skills. It'd be great to email Christina or Lori and facilitate a conversation around that. There's also independent study options. So if this intrigues you, but you're not quite sure working with people, then there's a way to really come in and have access to the video library where you can see the labs and pods in actions. You can see some of the past activations. You can go through and work with them. So there's a lot of different levels that you can get involved at. And it's really, where do you have a yes for that? At what level do you have a yes for? And if you have that yes, this work is life-changing. It's life-changing and soul expansive in a way that is not just light and mush, you know? It's a way that is real, and it's a way that is challenging, and it's a way that asks you to show up for yourself in a way that many of us have wanted to, but have not known how.
And it is so deeply satisfying, and such a flow towards what feels like home as well, from my
Yes.
experience.
Yes, there uh, there was a point where I realized that, wow, like I could die tomorrow and be completely and utterly satisfied with what I have done here, and that's because of the work of Lightbody. That's because of the depth and the connection that has happened, stemming from this work. And I think that's a huge gift to be able to say. Not many people walking the earth have that kind of
Wow, wow.
satisfaction or um, contentment on that level.
Mm. And stepping forward for me into this transformation from uh, into a new paradigm, let's say, is just so thrilling and so exciting, and it just blows all the doors and windows and pathways open for what we have the power together to experience and create.
Yes, and that's what we're doing, right? We're creating this new paradigm as we go, and it's what a beautiful thing. And I feel so honored, Alana, to have you as part of the program, and to be in a space of co-creation with you, and to be in a space of co-creation with each person that is choosing to follow their yes. It's really quite phenomenal, you know. And we don't necessarily like know what we're doing or know what we're creating, and yet we know.
Yes.
It's and you learn to embrace those kind of dualities.
And a comment that I missed earlier, I just want to speak to about trouble with focus. Oh, that was so true of me too, even to focus an intention or to focus on the activities that were happening as I move through this process. But it is a process, and I am every day better able to hold a focused intention and my focus on what I'm doing and in full presence in the moment. And that's a very dramatic change for me.
Well, can you elaborate on that? We've got a few minutes, so I would love to hear your perspective of where you were at when you entered
Well,
Lightbody, where you find yourself now.
oh, well, okay, I'll do it in a little nutshell here. I actually was in pretty stuck space in my life. I had transitioned from a very active work career into retirement, and bought a piece of property in a totally new place out in the country and landed in it. I wanted to change it up. I knew I wanted to change it up. I was part of this, growing population of those of us who are really feeling that it's time for change into something new. And I was feeling the internal impulse to take a get out of my normal daily routine, and which was feeling a little bit stuck, and just take some risks and open up some new terrain and some new possibilities. And so I did that, and a few years down the road, I began to feel this call to unity that's coming up stronger and stronger and stronger in me, in the collective, and the need for its playing out clearly around us. And yet here I was. I had moved to a new place, and I was pretty isolated. I quite frankly, didn't know how to get from where I was into unity. Walking on the planet, living, breathing, interacting with other people, unity from my isolated state. And so I got fed up, not words that I use so much anymore, but with feeling that way, and decide I'm going to take some risks. So you don't know how to start, just take a step. So I opened up to the first things that interested me and said, I'm going to leap on them with no thought if something catches my attention. And so a gathering caught my attention, and I just pushed the go button on it without thinking about it, and traveled to an event that happened in Washington State. And it was kind of a camp out gathering as well. And 2 tents down from where I pitched my tent at this wonderful gathering was Christina's tent, with an awning in front of it, all set up with an espresso maker and a circle of chairs for morning chats for the early risers. And I'm an early riser, and I thought that was such a kind, wonderful, delightful thing for someone to do that I wandered down and joined the morning chat circle and met Christina, and knew immediately that wow, this is really wonderful, and that a very significant life pathway connection, soul to soul connection had been made. So then I came home and went online and explored the Lightbody Academy. And truthfully, I had met Christina. I'd heard her speak. I so recognized a resonance with what she was saying and the work she was doing, and wanted more. And I really didn't have a clue what more was. I knew she had spoken about this thing called Lightbody Academy. I had a sense of the quality of her person and what she brings forward into a resonance from sitting in a couple of her lectures when she was one of the keynotes at this event. And so I punched the button and signed on to the Dreamtime Healing Workshop. Still didn't have a clue what it was. So I arrived not having a clue what it was.
Oh God, that's really taking the leap. Kudos.
I had no idea, feeling like a sore thumb in the middle of a mix I didn't understand. But it was very, part of what was difficult for me to focus was just the fact that I hadn't known what I had wanted for so long. I'd been so unclear about what I was going for. I mean, I always had a core sense of who I am and what to do, but it made me very distracted, and I had sort of got lazy about honing my focus in to accomplish any particular thing. I was pretty drifting. So that was hard. And then to be able to get clear enough with myself to take responsibility for a focused intention was really challenging. And then in the work that played out in these labs, focusing on the rhythms of my body rhythms, even just the beat of my heart was really difficult at first. These are all things. And what was affecting my focus was my self-consciousness, my feeling like, can I do this? What, just all of that old stuff that, thank goodness, I continually peel layers of, and I'm feeling so much more free of than I was when I began the projects. And my ability to set an intention and hold a focus on it is so dramatically improved as I recognize the importance of that, the importance of what I think, what I intend, what I say, the quality of heart that I bring to the intention is actually rippling out into the collective, and it's my contribution to the collective and where we're going. And so it's just, and the other kinds of refinement that happen that we talked about earlier, with seeing other people and their perspectives and experiencing them coming to their own core and center and connection with their soul, their spirit, their however it is a person thinks of that. It's just been a refinement and a honing of focus, quality of presence, showing up, commitment to spirit, and it's honed a much stronger focus than I had when I came in all over the place in my own way.
So what I'm hearing is it's been this internal paradigm shift as well, being in the
Huge.
program. Mhm.
Huge, huge. And it actually brought me from an external orientation, going out there for information, going out there for um, uh, spiritual experiences, to flipping the switch and diving in here into this beating heart and the rhythm of my presence in this bodysuit, and finding a doorway in the center of my heart that had a spark in it that's now flaming, that I came in with. It was an inherent gift that I think we all possess, that kept me connected to my soul speak and my spirit, and the place that I could grab onto and come from in redesigning my life, and the way I make my choices and bring myself forward in it.
Oh, that's all, huh? It's everything.
Well, I bumped into a
Yeah.
lot of crap along the way in the process. Let me tell
Uh-huh.
But you know what? Now I say, now I'm not embarrassed by that. I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's living,
There's
you
a
know.
pride there, like,
That's a
hey.
part of how I got to this moment. So
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for
yes,
sharing your experience.
thank you too, Ashlyn. It's been a delight being here with you this morning. It's morning for us, but
It is.
and how wonderful to meet our Rise of the Multidimensional Human family a little more.
Yes, yes. It may continue. And may the family and community continue growing.
Yes.
So lightbodyacademy.com. Check it out. Feel if you have a yes for it. If you have a yes, go for it. Go for it. And we would love to welcome you in.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Miss Alana. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
And thanks, everybody. Hope to see you again. Bye-bye.